Hi, my name is Elliot, and I am so excited to talk to you today. I'm an osteopathic manual practitioner. My patients have asked me to simply do a quick video to describe to you what osteopathy is and the benefit of osteopathy. I don't want to give you a textbook definition. Instead, I want to rather give you a little story of how I've come to appreciate osteopathy and how I've come to understand osteopathy. I guess the story starts when I was 17. I was a national level gymnast training in Ireland on the Irish national team when I was rear-ended at 120. This accident left me with several injuries, including a fractured neck, spinal injuries lower down in my spine, full body whiplash, a stripped sciatic nerve, brain shearing. I spent an entire year in hospital, of which 4 months of that was bed rest. 8 months was in a body cast, and after I got through the hospitalization of a sort of a very traditional mainstream rehabilitation, I ended up taking another 2 additional years to learn how to walk again. The interesting thing is during this sort of process, I found this passion to really learn and understand how the body operates and how we can achieve optimal health. So I continued my process going to St. Francis Xavier, studying kinesiology, which is the study of human movement and performance, and I combined that with psychology, which looked at the sort of the motivation of how we move. During this time period, I looked at fields like craniosacral therapy and myofascial release, and these are sort of components of osteopathy, and then continued down the path of massage therapy and ultimately to osteopathic school. Now, when I reached osteopathic school, what ended up happening was I had this major drive in me to be healthy, but the reality is my body was falling apart and I wasn't very healthy. When you're born, you compensate and you adapt and you compensate and you adapt until one day, ultimately, you lose the ability to adapt either locally in an area or systemically in an area. And, and this is sort of the process of which disease and dysfunction occurs. So here I was, a young man, optimistic and wanting to achieve health, but yet the reality was I was actually very sick. I had prostatitis and epididymitis and ulcerative colitis and pericarditis and learning disabilities and chronic pain, and I didn't have a lot of hope. And every year it felt like my body was dying, and every year it felt like another condition was failing me. And I was really struggling to try to find the answers. So I went to the guru of the school at the time and I said, what is the potential of osteopathy? I want to help people, but ultimately I have to experience it firsthand so I can believe in this. And I said, what is the potential of osteopathy? So he said, come with me and we'll treat you. So he pulled me out of my class and we went into a room where there was about 40, 50 other people. I explained my story, and I got into my underwear and he started to do his evaluation, his assessment, and started his treatment. And he was just gently putting his hands on certain areas of my body, and I could feel slight shifts. And at that point in my life, I was very hypersensitive to touch and what was going on in my body. And the interesting thing I found was that I actually couldn't really feel much of what he was doing. And as he was going through his process, I realized that I was actually limiting my healing process by controlling it. And I was thinking and feeling about what it was going to be the impact of me taking time out of my schedule and the cost of school, and how much financially was this going to cost me to learn something that I couldn't feel. And then all of a sudden I heard a little voice in my head, and it actually changed my life. And the voice was saying, let go of control. And at that moment I let go of control, and that's when I said my life really did change, because I did feel huge fluctuations and huge shifts in my body. And for the first time I could feel blood coming to my head. And on a deeper level, I experienced what it was like to feel vitality or life coming back into my body, health coming back into my body. Where up to this point it was deteriorating, and it felt that I was dying, and every year it was getting worse. But all of a sudden after this treatment, I could feel the potential of the health coming back into my body. So I didn't have pain after that, and I didn't have prostatitis or ulcerative colitis, and my health really dramatically changed after that treatment. But what I realized was that that the potential for osteopathy was much greater than what I had realized. And I did what any good intuitive would do at that point, is I actually stopped getting treatment, and I managed to not get treated for another 3 years. And of course, a lot of my conditions came back. So I realized that in life, it's perseverance, and you always have to continue to thrive, to be better, and to work on the issues that you have. And I continued on to do another 7 years of treatment, in which I really grew, not only emotionally and physically and spiritually, but in all my relationships. And I realized that how I was living in my past limited my ability to move forward based on how I was feeling and my perception of health. So I continued to work on myself and continued to treat my patients and come to have a different understanding of maybe osteopathy. So essentially what an osteopath is he looks for causes of dysfunction. And that dysfunction might be either internally inside your body or externally on how you're living your life. And that can actually manifest itself physically in you. So we look at 2 movement patterns, one being of mechanical nature. So how does a joint move? And how can we liberate that in order to remove the barriers of health? Remove the barriers of dysfunction to achieve health. And the other side of it, which is a little harder to explain, is the subtle movement patterns, also known as the PRM, or the primary respiratory mechanism, in which the vitality expresses itself. So what this is basically stems from embryology, how we've developed as an embryo. Your liver will start and it will side bend and rotate, your kidneys will come down, your bowels will rotate on themselves. You have these little buds and they will externally rotate to form arms. So it's these movement patterns that allow us to develop are in us today, and it actually gives us what gives us health and well-being. So some individuals get stuck more mechanically, some individuals get stuck more on that biodynamic level, and you can use a combination of those to optimize the healing process. We use concepts like craniosacral therapy, so the manipulation of the brain and the cranial bones and the meninges and the dura down to the sacrum. We look at the expression of health through the musculoskeletal system and normalizing that. We also look at organs and the viscera and their interrelationships with other structures in the body. We look at the fascia and how everything's sort of connected through this fascial system. So ultimately, an osteopath is removing the dysfunction that's limiting health, arranging the mechanics in a way that will optimize the health and allow the person to express themselves not only physically or physiologically, but also emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically. So osteopathy has this huge potential to allow people to achieve a different reality in their life and fully achieve optimal health. It's been an asset to me and to bear witness to change in not only my own life, but also that of my patients. And I'm extremely grateful for having discovered or having found osteopathy and to be able to talk about it today. And I want to thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this. Hopefully it added a little bit more insight to what osteopathy is all about. And I hope to talk to you a little bit more about osteopathy and pregnancy and concussions and fertility, and even how the psychological aspects of health can really feed into your life. So thank you very much at Life Therapies. We wish you a good day, and stay tuned because there's going to be more.